The crash didn't look too bad from the outside. A mild dent in the cargo shuttle's flank, some scorched paneling along the rear thrusters, and a trail of fluid leading to the edge of the landing bay. But inside the med bay, things were far less tidy. Ilan Odrick sat on the steel table, his left thigh soaked in dark blood, pant leg shredded wide open. The makeshift tourniquet, a length of emergency tubing from the shuttle wall, was tied too tight, and his fingers were tingling. "You sure this is the med bay?" Ilan asked, squinting past the harsh overhead light that buzzed faintly. "Because I feel like I walked into the janitor's closet." The alien standing across from him stiffened, its 4 fingers twitching nervously. It was tall, lanky, pale green, and wore a blue trainee sash over its uniform that read, Medic Cadet Virox. Virox's eyes shifted between Ilan's wound and a data pad that he clutched like a lifeline. I am still learning," Virox said, voice trembling. "This is my first emergency response without supervision. You are bleeding extensively." Ilan glanced down again. The gash was ugly, at least 10 centimeters long, with torn muscle visible beneath. Blood dripped steadily onto the floor. "Yeah, I noticed," he said through clenched teeth. "You got a scanner in here or something? I think some metal's still in there." Virox scrambled to the wall and retrieved a compact diagnostic wand, nearly dropping it on the way back. He hovered it over the wound, and the display blinked red. "Foreign object detected," Virox muttered, eyes wide. "Metal fragment, depth 1.3 centimeters, muscle torn, possible femoral vessel proximity." "You think?" Ilan muttered, wincing. "I've been sitting on a damn geezer for 20 minutes, just past the Band-Aids." Virox blinked. "Band-Aids?" "Figure of speech, gauze, pressure wrap, antiseptic. Come on, you've got a cart full of supplies behind you." Virox turned abruptly, then froze. I do not know the human thresholds for pain. I said past the damn gauze." Virox flinched and grabbed a sterile pack from the tray. He fumbled with the wrapper, accidentally tossing the roll across the floor. Ilan groaned. "You're panicking." "I am not," Virox barked, his voice cracking. "I am simply processing." Ilan leaned back against the wall, his pulse thudding loud in his ears. "Look, I'm not going to die in here, probably, but you have to stop freaking out and help me stabilize this before I pass out." Virox's hands shook as he finally applied antiseptic solution, dabbing with more force than necessary. Ilan hissed. Sorry, Virox said quickly. "I do not want to cause more harm. The antiseptic is compatible with human biochemistry, yes?" "Stings like hell, so I'm guessing yes." They worked in awkward silence for several minutes, while Virox applied pressure and wrapped the leg. Ilan's shirt was soaked through with sweat by the time it was done. "I need to get you to the infirmary," Virox said softly, regaining some composure. "There will be imaging and repairs. I am not licensed for internal extraction." "Good, because if you started digging in there with that butter knife, I'd knock you out." Virox helped Ilan onto a hover stretcher and guided it down the corridor. The station's lights buzzed overhead, and distant voices echoed through the halls. As they reached the main medical wing, Ilan's vision blurred. "Sheesh, I think I'm going to pass out." "Please do not," Virox said, quickening his pace. "We are very close, just a few more meters." The double doors to the infirmary slid open, revealing a sterile room with real doctors, 2 aliens in white coats, and 1 human nurse, who looked up in alarm. "What the hell happened?" the nurse asked, rushing forward. "Shuttle accident," Ilan mumbled. "Tried to be a hero. Didn't work out." "Leg trauma, open wound," Virox said. "Foreign object detected, bleeding controlled, no signs of arterial rupture." The nurse nodded. "All right, let's get him scanned. You, step back." Virox backed into a corner as the team lifted Ilan onto the main diagnostic bed. A full-body scan began, bathing the chamber in blue light. "Fragment's still in there," the nurse muttered. "No bone damage, but we're close to the femoral artery. Lucky." "I get that a lot," Ilan said weakly. They worked fast. The fragment was removed with a precision tool, while Ilan floated in and out of consciousness. Pain meds dulled the edge, but the nausea lingered. The leg was flushed, stitched, and wrapped tightly. A low-dose antibiotic IV was set up. Virox watched every step, eyes darting, hands clasped in front of him. After the procedure, Ilan lay drowsily under a thermal blanket, his leg elevated. Virox approached slowly. I am sorry I was unprepared." "You weren't," Ilan said, voice hoarse. "You panicked. But you didn't freeze. That's the difference. I should have been better. I have studied emergency protocols for standard humanoid trauma extensively. Well, real blood hits harder than textbook diagrams." Virox hesitated. "I have never seen a being bleed that much and remain conscious." "Yeah, well, humans are weird. We bleed like fountains, but don't drop until the tank's almost empty. That is not comforting." Ilan laughed, then winced and gripped his side. "Don't worry. You're not the first medic to freak out. I've seen seasoned field docs faint at compound fractures." Virox's eyes widened. "Faint?" Flat on their backs, one guy puked in his helmet. "I will endeavor not to replicate that." "Good plan." The nurse returned with a clipboard. "You'll need 2 weeks off your feet. Sutures stay in for 10 days. We'll monitor for infection, but prognosis is good." "Lucky me," Ilan murmured. Virox lingered awkwardly. "You will recover?" "Sure, give me some crutches and a few bad movies." There was a long pause. Then Virox said, "May I visit during your recovery? I would like to observe human healing processes more directly." Ilan raised an eyebrow. "You want to watch me sit around and complain about the food?" "Yes, and monitor tissue regeneration." "Knock yourself out." Virox tilted his head, confused. "That does not sound helpful." "It's a joke. You'll get it eventually." The nurse handed Ilan a cup of water. "You'll be moved to recovery wing in an hour. Rest." As she left, Ilan looked at Virox again. "Hey, thanks for not bailing. You held it together, even if just barely." "I will study harder," Virox said. "Good. Just remember next time we're not made of glass, but we're not made of steel either." Virox nodded solemnly. Outside, the station lights dimmed into simulated night. The med bay quieted, and Ilan, leg stitched and arm needled, closed his eyes as the pain finally dulled into a bearable throb. The day after the procedure, the recovery bay lights brightened gently to simulate morning. Ilan cracked an eye open, his mouth dry and his leg aching with a dull persistence. The thermal blanket had slipped halfway off during the night, and the auto bed had adjusted twice, leaving him tilted at a weird angle that hadn't exactly helped anything. He reached for the call panel. Before he could tap it, the door slid open and Virox entered, holding a translucent container with something blue and steaming inside. "You're up," Virox said, carefully placing the container on the side table. "I brought you breakfast. I was told human patients require caloric intake to assist in tissue regeneration." Ilan eyed the container suspiciously. "That better not be synth kelp." "It is a balanced protein gel designed for cross-species compatibility. Flavor profile is unregistered," Virox said, straightening proudly. "You mean it tastes like nothing?" "Not necessarily." One of the engineers claimed it reminded him of a battery dipped in mint. Ilan pushed himself upright with a grunt. "I'll pass. Got any of those nutrient bars with the fake peanut butter?" Virox hesitated. "I believe those are classified as non-essential indulgence items." "So, that's a no. I can requisition them." "Do that. If I'm going to spend the next week staring at this ceiling, I need something that doesn't taste like antiseptic." Virox's fingers twitched as he pulled a slim device from his uniform. "I will submit the request. In the meantime, may I examine your leg? If you promise not to stab it." "I do not possess any stabbing tools at the moment." "That's what they all say." Virox approached cautiously and lifted the blanket. The bandages were clean, no seepage, no swelling. The skin surrounding the sutures was pink but not angry, and the stitching held firm. "Looks better than it feels," Ilan said, watching Virox's eyes scan the wound. There is minor localized inflammation but no signs of necrosis or abnormal discharge. Sutures intact. Tissue integration progressing within expected parameters. Translation: I'm healing. Yes. Varig tapped a few notes into the device, then looked up. Have you experienced any fever, nausea, or hallucinations? Just dreams about being chased by a vending machine. That is not a recognized side effect. I didn't say it was. Virox paused. I can perform a neural scan to be sure. Let's skip that unless I start trying to eat the bedsheets. There was a beep at the door. A maintenance bot rolled in, humming quietly as it began inspecting the ceiling paneling. Virox glanced at it, then turned back. I have been studying human immune response patterns during trauma recovery. Your species displays unusually aggressive tissue regeneration despite lacking regenerative organs. We make up for it with spite and caffeine. That is not reflected in the literature. Better update your data. The bot chirped and rolled out. Ilan shifted, trying to find a position that didn't press on the leg. The stitches pulled slightly. Any word on the shuttle damage? He asked. Virox nodded. The engineers have completed structural analysis. The impact vector suggests a miscalibrated docking sequence. You were not at fault. Well, that's a relief. I was worried I'd get billed for the wall. They are billing you for the fluid spill. Figure. Ilan reached for the water cup and sipped. The liquid was lukewarm and tasted faintly of plastic, but it helped ease the dryness in his throat. Virox watched him closely. You are not exhibiting signs of psychological destabilization. What, like panic attacks? Or trauma-induced dissociation? Many species develop temporary cognitive anomalies following invasive injury. Not most species. That is already well documented. Ilan set the cup down. So, what did you actually come here for? Not just to poke my leg and offer mystery breakfast. I have been instructed to continue clinical exposure to human physiology. I'm not a teaching dummy. You are the only available human with visible sutures and no critical impairments. Lucky me. There was a pause. Then Virox added, Also, I was told to apologize. For what? My failure to maintain emotional regulation during your initial treatment. Already forgot about it. I have not. Well, try harder. You didn't pass out. You didn't run off. You didn't try to cauterize the wound with a plasma torch. That put you ahead of the curve. Virox tilted his head. There are documented cases of plasma torch usage on human wounds. Not on purpose, usually after drinking. I will exclude those from the standard treatment model. Good call. Just then, a tall figure stepped into the room. It was another alien, this one copper-skinned, with a narrow face and a single vertical eye in the center of its forehead. It wore a deep green uniform and carried a slim medical scanner in one hand. Cadet Virox, it said in a low, even tone. Report. Virox straightened. Patient is stable. No fever. Sutures holding. No infection. Appetite returning. The supervisor turned to Ilan. You are ambulatory? Not yet. Have you attempted motion? Only enough to know it hurts. The supervisor tapped the scanner against the bed's monitor. A soft chime confirmed the data transfer. Then it turned back to Virox. Continue monitoring, report any anomalies. Remove the drain line tomorrow. Virox dipped his head. Acknowledged. Without another word, the supervisor exited. Ilan let out a breath. Friendly. They are efficient. They look like a vending machine designed to judge you. I do not understand that reference. You will. Later that afternoon, Ilan was moved to a more open bay with two other patients, both alien, both unconscious. The room was quieter, the lighting softer. A nurse checked his IV and adjusted the angle of the bed. Virox returned shortly after with a small box. I acquired the bars, he said, offering the container. Ilan opened it. Inside were 6 nutrient bars, each wrapped in foil with a crude drawing of a smiling peanut on the front. You actually got them. I offered to translate 200 lines of archaic trade code in exchange. It's almost noble. I required assistance with the syntax anyway. Ilan unwrapped one bar and took a bite. It was dry, but the flavor was tolerable. He chewed slowly, leaning back. You're taking this whole medic thing seriously. I am not permitted to fail 2 rotations in a row. So this is about your record? No, Virox said, sitting on the stool beside the bed. It is about understanding how you survive things you statistically should not. Air paused mid-chew. Well, that's flattering in a weird way. I do not mean offense. Your biology is inconsistent. Your pain tolerance varies wildly across individuals. Your reflexes are unremarkable, and yet your species survives at statistically improbable rates. We're stubborn. That is not a medical trait. It is if you want it to be. Virox considered that. You are difficult to categorize. Good. That means you're paying attention. As the artificial dusk dimmed the lights again, Ilan finished his bar and closed his eyes. The ache in his leg had lessened slightly, and the hum of the medical systems faded into the background. Virox remained seated, quietly recording notes. Neither of them spoke for a long while. Eventually, Ilan cracked one eye. You can come back tomorrow if you want. I will. Bring real food next time. I will attempt to locate freed starch discs. Now you're learning. By the 4th day, Ilan had graduated from bedbound to hobbling. The crutches were adjustable, though they squeaked every 3rd step like they were protesting the indignity of being used by a human. His leg throbbed less, but still protested any movement beyond a shuffle. The sutures had started to itch, which the nurse claimed was a good sign, but to Ilan it just felt like the universe was mocking him with tiny invisible needles. Virox was waiting outside the recovery ward, holding a narrow tray with a sealed container and a folded blanket. I requested a protocol variance, Virox said, falling into step beside him. You are permitted 1 hour of movement outside the medical ring, provided you remain within the gravity-stabilized deck. Great, Ilan muttered. A whole hour to stretch the leg I'd rather not use. I brought environmental-grade support wraps in case the pressure differential causes discomfort. Ilan stopped. You expecting a hull breach? No, Virox said quickly, but some human tissues respond poorly to long periods in low-humidity corridors. Your dermal layer has not been rehydrated since the incident. I'm not a houseplant. Virox seemed genuinely unsure how to respond to that. They took the slow ramp toward Observation Deck 6, a quiet mezzanine with wide windows and fewer personnel traffic. On the way up, Ilan passed a trio of Sinvari engineers who paused mid-conversation to watch him limp by. One of them, a short pale one with a ring of bioluminescent spots across its scalp, whispered something that made the tallest one twitch in alarm. You get that a lot? Ilan asked Virox, nodding back at the group. Many of the crew are attempting to reconcile your survival with their internal models of biological durability. Let me guess. They think I should be in a coma. Or deceased. Wow. That's heartwarming. They are impressed, in their own way. They reached the observation deck and found a bench near the far window. The view was mostly stars and the faint shimmer of the station's outer shielding field. Ilan dropped onto the bench with a groan, adjusting the crutches beside him. Virox sat carefully on the edge, then opened the container. Inside were 2 small rolls of something beige and gelatinous, a square of compressed fruit, and a folded paper with handwritten annotations. What's this? Ilan asked, poking at the rolls. A sample meal from the Neuralith quarter. I was told it has restorative properties. It looks like it came out of a printer that sneezed. Would you prefer I return it? Nah, let's give alien jelly sushi a chance. He took a bite and chewed thoughtfully. Well, surprisingly not terrible. Tastes like cold soup and lemon rind. That is within acceptable tolerance for first exposure. Ilan took another bite, then leaned back against the wall. So, you planning to keep doing this after your rotation ends? I have submitted a request to extend my human physiology elective. Seriously? I am unlikely to encounter another species that disregards standard trauma thresholds so routinely. I'm flattered, I think. Virox pulled out a datapad and tapped something. Would you describe your current pain level as sharp, pulsing, or dull? Somewhere between tolerable and mildly offensive? That is not on the standardized scale. Then, update your scale. Virox hesitated, then made a note. I reviewed the scan logs from your initial injury, he said. You had 3 separate micro-tears in your lateral muscle group. One of them was within 2 millimeters of a nerve cluster. Didn't feel like 2. You should have lost motor control in that leg. Well, I didn't. Statistically, you should not have been able to walk unaided before suture reinforcement. Guess I'm a walking statistical anomaly. That is what concerns me. Why? You do not seem concerned. I'm alive. That's usually enough. Virox looked out at the stars. My species considers injury a failure of foresight. We plan contingencies. We do not take risks unless the outcome is mathematically favorable. Yeah, well, sometimes you don't get to plan the crash. That is what I find difficult to process. You're not supposed to process it, you're supposed to deal with it. Virox blinked slowly. Your response mechanisms are reactive improvisation. Exactly. The silence stretched for a while. A maintenance drone zipped past the window, blinking in a lazy arc toward the docking ring. Then Virox said, I have also reviewed human responses to long-term injuries. Some experience emotional instability, depression, loss of identity. Well, I'm not planning to make a personality out of a limp. I'll get better. There is a chance of reduced mobility. If that happens, I adapt. That's the gig. Virox studied him. You do not fear permanent impairment? I fear not being useful, but I've seen people do more with less. Virox tapped his datapad again. You are not what I expected. Most people aren't. The hour passed quickly. By the end of it, Ilan's leg was aching again, and he was sweating slightly from the effort of walking. Virox offered the blanket as a makeshift sling to elevate it during the return trip, and Ilan accepted without protest. Back in the recovery ward, the nurse scanned the healing progress and nodded. Tissues closing up. We'll remove the sutures tomorrow. No signs of infection. Great, Ilan muttered, just in time for me to get bored all over again. The nurse adjusted the leg support and left. Virox remained, standing at the foot of the bed. I will not be assigned to this wing after tomorrow. Ilan looked up. They moving you? My rotation concludes at the end of this cycle. I am being reassigned to diagnostic labs. Guess that means no more jelly sushi. No, but I will submit a full case report on your recovery. Make sure you include the part where the humans survived being stitched up by a panicked alien student. I was not panicked. You dropped the gauze, twice. Virox's posture stiffened. I was adjusting to unexpected variables. Sure you were. They both paused. Then Virox said, Your resilience is not just physical. Neither is yours. Virox tilted his head again, not in confusion this time, but in something close to appreciation. I hope we encounter each other again, he said. Just not in the med bay. That would be preferable. They didn't shake hands. Virox's species found the gesture invasive. Instead, he gave a short nod, then turned and left without another word. Ilan watched the doors slide shut behind him, then leaned back against the pillow and let out a slow breath. The dull throb in his leg had faded to a background hum. He reached for one of the nutrient bars from the drawer, unwrapped it, and took a bite. Still dry, still tasted like sand and sugar, but it was progress.